The sport of off-road racing is full of incredible stories, wild characters, legends, and even villains. We cover it all on offroadracer.com, but there's only so much we can put down in an article. Sometimes we have to dig a little deeper, and that means sitting down with some of our industry's most influential characters and hitting record. Welcome to the Off-Road Racer Podcast, a Mad Media production, made exclusively for offroadracer.com. Each month, we'll go beyond the dirt into the homes, shops, and lives of the most interesting and game-changing icons of our sport. You'll hear about their history, success, failure, and everything in between as we pull back the curtain and reveal the stories of their lives. I'm your host, Matt Martelli, and this is the Off-Road Racer Podcast.
All right, I'd like to welcome everybody out here to Project Action on Podcast One. Got, fellow podcaster Brian Deegan here, good friend of mine, along with Josh Martelli, going to be tag teaming the interview with me. But Brian, I guess first of all, reason for this, you know how I am. I just steamroll everything. Went from a phone interview to here we are with a film crew and talking in your shop here. But you got a new podcast coming out on Podcast One, I know, this week, man. Give us, before we jump into the cool interview part, give us a lowdown on what you guys got going.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I've heard a lot about the podcast, movement, right? So a lot of excitement about guys that are doing podcasts. And I really, to be honest, stayed away from it because I didn't understand it really. I didn't know how it would work for me. And I've been so busy with the kids and sponsorships and marketing and just family. It's just so busy. I'm like, how could I fit in one more thing? But after, working out and talking to the guys from Podcast One, they really laid it out for me like, hey, we have a team of people that are going to help you through this and real professional. And I said, and I looked at it, I'm like, okay, this is a cool way to tell stories, a cool way to go back into the history of all the things I've done in my life and then involve my daughter and my sons and, my wife and all their subjects and what they have to talk about. And I think we're going to cover a lot of bases and maybe, the goal is to really help people, right? So if someone's struggling in moto to make it, or someone's struggling in off-road, or struggling in parenting or family or parenting, maybe something I've done or in my life or something I'll say will help them. That's cool to me. So I think that's kind of the moral behind the podcast, and I'm excited, I think it's going to be cool, I don't know. I don't know how much work I'm getting myself into right now, but I'm excited.
Yeah, well, I know between you and your daughter and the whole family, you guys got your hands in about a million different things. But I know, like, the first episode, this is one, and obviously we want people to go over and tune in and check it out. But I know you and Travis Pastrana sat down. And that's one of those, I think, me as a fan of action sports and motocross, like, and anybody, like, this is probably, like, you two sitting at a table or over the phone, like, a 1 hour conversation. Like, to me, dude, that's mind-blowing because I know, like, for the longest time, people thought you guys hated each other and this and that. And I see so many parallels between you guys and family men now and things like that. And, like, I mean, we want people to go and listen to it, but that had to have been a fun conversation for you two guys to have.
Oh, for sure. I thought about, okay, this is my opportunity to talk to people in my industry, and I couldn't think of a better person, like, realistically, that has been involved in my life at certain points in the competition, in the darkest, deepest, moments to the highest of highs. He's been around me and competing against me, so I had moments where I hated the dude, like, literally, like, I hated it that he beat me all the time. And he was the good guy. We were the bad guys with the militia, and it just kind of played out perfectly. And with X-Games and TV. And in the beginning, we really did have an issue, I think, but he was a young kid. I think we were just being haters, but now that I look back at it, but it was, it was real. And then it kind of panned out over the years, right? And Travis, you had to respect the guy because he's just that gnarly. So, it was cool to be able to have him on the first episode of the Deegans podcast. I just thought that was a perfect way to start it. And episode 0 will be on that also, which kind of describes who we are. If you don't really know about my family and haven't followed us on social, I think it'll be a good intro to who we are, Yeah.
Yeah, well, and talking about your family, dude, I mean, we rolled up here, and it's the first time I've been at your compound. I think Josh has been here. You guys did, was it like yard work together or something like that? But, dude, like I roll up, I mean, we're in this amazing shop here. I mean, we've got, this X-Games, the West Coast Choppers bike. Like, to me, that's like the bike that I always like. Yeah. I can't believe I'm looking at it, man, because, like, this is the bike. Like, I was like, if I could pick one bike I wanted, like, in my collection, that'd be it. But, like, I mean, as part of you look back on this, kid that grew up in the Midwest and go, man, like, who would ever thought?
It's crazy. That's the thing about, I did a documentary, not less than a year ago with Paul Tobley, and that documentary explained, where I came from in a small town in Nebraska, chased my dreams to California, really didn't have money, came out here to chase this pro motocross career. I didn't make it in motocross and went into freestyle motocross and took a lot of chances and helped build action sports with the X-Games. And so many good stories, and I was able to meet guys like Jesse James, who helped build all my dirt bikes, which is pretty cool. And I kept them all because I knew one day those two strokes would be badass. And so we're starting to break them out now. But the story goes, coming from a small town and not taking no for an answer and going against the grain and taking chances and not wanting to go back. And, at the end of the day, I think it's still happening to this day. I still have that drive of like small town kid trying to go against the odds. And I can't believe all the people I've met. I met a lot of my heroes, like a lot of my heroes. When I was a little kid, I had pictures of Ricky Johnson on my wall, Jeff Ward. Now those dudes, I call them, all the time. We talk like friends all the time. Never what I thought when I was a little kid, my heroes would be my friends, right? So, but that just in reality shows that it can happen, right? Like that can happen.
Yeah. Well, and you talk about that small town, and I know like I'm from a small town. Matt, you guys are small town, you and your brother, or Matt and Josh. But it's like, I feel like some of us, with that upbringing, and like you said, that blue collar work ethic, like I know me, like even to this day, I do pretty well for myself. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I think all of us sitting here do well for ourselves, but like I'm always scared. Like to me, like at some point the rug's going to be pulled out from under me. Yeah. So it's like you still to this day, it's like you have that drive to do more and go farther.
Yeah, I always, and trust me, I think about that because it's in my contracts, right? If I screw up too bad, I start losing deals. But it's pretty funny, like because I'll let it out of the bag. But like they're in contracts. If you ever had an athlete contract, it usually says in there if you get arrested for something like a felony, right? They can take your contract, right? But I put in there, I said, no, I have to be convicted of a felony. So anyway, that kind of describes my militia days. And but obviously things have changed with family. But it's cool because in my era, I was able to be a racer, Supercross. I was dead serious about racing. Went to freestyle. We were partying and being crazy, setting this image of the militia and X-Games, and then went back to racing and then family. But it's kind of cool because even I still to this day, obviously I screw up and have my bad days, but I'm still always can just blame it on the militia, right? I can be like, hey, that's militia.
You got like a built-in scapegoat for life.
Scapegoat, so it's all good, dude.
One thing I've noticed about you, Brian, is you've kind of turned into a pretty awesome, inspirational dude, man. Like a lot of your posts are. It's not just raw aggression anymore. I think it's like a settled in, like fatherly kind of advice that's coming out of you. It's really cool to see as somebody who has a kid too. Yeah. It's cool to point to that and go, look at what this dude's doing with his family.
Yeah, no, thanks. It's cool because, growing up, like I said, my dad raised me. I was focused on racing, and that's all that really mattered to me. And then as I grew up and then went through X-Games, and it was really about me and my buddies, and we were being rebel guys, and we didn't really care what influence we had on people. Like we really were doing, gnarly things, and and I didn't really think about the kids, to be honest, like because I didn't have kids, right. And so once I had kids, I started going, man, everything I do or say is influencing the youth. And then I watch my kids get influenced by other people, such as musicians or different things that I'm like, man, I don't really want that, like certain things that are bad. And then I started saying, you know what, that's probably not good for me to do things that can influence kids in a bad way. Right. And, even though it does happen, I'm human, but overall I said if I have this platform and I can help people get better on their bad days, and that's cool, right? Right. Because I've been in that position, of people having the bad days or struggling to make success happen. And I just felt like if I could help people with that, that's cool. So anyway, that's kind of a thing that's just naturally progressed, I guess.
Yeah, no, it is really cool. And Travis has done the same thing. Yeah. A lot of guys in the sport, I think, that have matured, they've, gotten married, had kids, started families. now they're putting that energy back out there in a positive way. It's cool to see.
Yeah,
you know?
which could, I mean, it could go many different ways, right? Like, but Travis, you know, Travis had his moments, right? He was a good guy. Then he kind of went to party guy when we went to good guy, and it's just cool. Whatever. He's late bloomer.
I think the party guy's still there. Party guy's still there too. I just don't know if it's quite as public. But.
Yeah.
There were a couple weird rally races we won't talk about.
Yeah,
I'm
sure. A lot's brushed under the rug, but it is cool because he's a father now. He has kids, which a lot of us are now, right? So a lot of us are fathers, you know, married or have kids, and there's more to life than just us now. So it's a different way, you know, way of looking at it.
Yeah.
Well, you know, and talking about that, I think one of the cool things, you know, is I know Josh has got a question on social media, and I know, you know, but like when you started your career, social media wasn't out there, you know, and so, you know, you had, you know, the events that were televised on TV and X-Games every year and stuff like that, where people really got to know you. You know, we're talking magazines before we went on to air and things like that, but it was really hard to get your story out. So you had these brief glimpses into Brian Deegan that people were judging you on, you know, and then in between they saw nothing. You know, other than maybe a video you put out and things like that. Now, like, you know, instantly you can pull your phone out of your pocket and it's like, bam, you have instant access to millions of people, you know. And so, like, I think it's interesting how this entire movement and just how you probably approach sponsorship and generating income, you know, when you first started out versus now, like the business model, everything's completely changed, man.
Yeah, it's different, you know. And, like, our big moments were X Games. You know, when we had a moment on TV, that was X Games. And that was once a year, twice a year. So when that happened, we were like, oh, we're going all out. We're going to steal the camera time, and we have to get the most out of this hour or whatever it was, good or bad. We got the media, you know. And so now you have every day. I wake up and do media. I wake up and check media. I go to bed and check media. Like at the end of the day, it's all day. If I like want to hire someone, I just go on their Facebook. I just go on there, you know. I go Instagram. Who is this guy, right? So it's too easy to research people now, but it's easy to follow athletes and pick your guy. And I feel like, you know, now I've had a good run of 5-10 years of, you know, being a dad and focus on family. Is that I think no matter what, even if someone's, you know, like my image I had, it took a while to shake that image, you know, from the Mulisha days. And you know, people are like, oh, Deegan was, you know, he's a bad dude, or he does this or he does that. And people are like, no, really, you don't know him. You know, I've heard that a lot. But now it's like social's told the story, right? It's more of live by your actions is what we've done over, you know, the last so many years. So, yeah, I think even if I did have a mishap or screw up, people kind of go, well, we kind of know who this dude is now, like, because of social media, right? It's hard to hide anything anymore. You know, I heard that, like, with social, there's going to come a day where you can't hide anything anymore.
Probably part of you loves that social wasn't around at a certain
Oh,
party.
yeah. Oh, yeah. And me and my buddies say that one, too. We're like, thank God there was no cell phones back in our day. Yeah. But, yeah, it's because everything's documented now. Everything, you know? Which, hey, it's a good thing and a bad thing, but it's a much tougher generation for kids to grow up in now. It is. It just is, you know, because you're
under the microscope.
Under the microscope, no. So, yeah.
So you've got this amazing run going on right now with Hailie's career and this trajectory within NASCAR, and I just wanted to touch on that for a second, especially as it pertains to social media, because what I noticed, you guys talked about it maybe a few weeks ago on Instagram, is you guys are putting up some serious numbers. Like, you guys have an incredible following. And that speaks both to how authentic you guys are on camera, how often you post. I mean, you are your own production factory right now. It's pretty awesome to watch. What's it like to be essentially teaching like a 71-year-old company how to do this? I mean, they do a pretty good job of it with the people that they have too, not knocking them. But, I mean, you guys have definitely hit on a formula that I think a lot of people could learn from. So does that happen organically over time, or is it something you guys put a lot of effort into? Or
yeah, I think if we had to break down the social media got at like the storyline for where we started, the timeline, man, it'd be a long story. But long story short, we've been in it since the beginning, or tried to be, you know, and I was the first of it, right? I was the athlete. I was at X Games. I was at all these events. We started posting. And then I saw it as, like, when Hailie came up, really Haiden came up before Hailie. Haiden was the crazy moto kid at 6 years old ripping on a dirt bike that myself and, you know, say Twitch and Feist and all these guys were posting about Haiden years ago. And so his social blew up first. But I always shared that. I always shared my platform with the kids to help build them. And then there came a time when Hailie, I said, Haiden, there's going to come a time when Hailie's going to nuke all of us. But the main thing was having this Deegan family structure where we all help each other. Because Hailie is going to reach a demographic that's much different than what Hayden's going to reach, right? Hailie's reaching this car market with NASCAR. And out of all the motorsports in America, NASCAR's still the biggest, right? They still have the hugest, like the biggest reach, even though Supercross in our eyes is everything and we think it's the world, right? But it's a small little niche thing compared to NASCAR. So when Hailie's finding her way through the ranks of NASCAR, which she's still low, right? She's Can-Am, ARCA. She still has to go to Trucks, Xfinity, and then Cup is the big one. But they're trying to tell a story like, hey, wait, Danica left. We have this girl coming, this girl that can win. And so the media is jumping on it. So we're getting flooded with media, and you can see Hailie's already ranked in the top 3 of all NASCAR drivers in social media. And that has a lot to do with her popularity, but it has a lot to do with what we've built. We've already built this engine of, Instagram, Facebook and Twitter and all this together as a family, and her numbers are strong because of what we built. We didn't just start building that this year or last year with Hailie. She had already had good numbers when she went to NASCAR. And NASCAR is looking at us going, okay, we own Twitter. That's our zone. That's East Coast. So how do we get more involved in the West Coast game of social media? And we've been working with them. They've been working with us. They have obviously a ton to offer us in TV and in media time. But if we can help bring some youth to the sport and connect them to a demographic that they have struggled to get to, it's going to be a win-win,
Yeah.
So,
well, it seems like that's what you guys are doing. You're touching on a level of entertainment or accessibility that maybe it's really resonating with a certain group of their fans, and it may not even be the people that show up to the physical races. It's maybe more the casual user that's just turning it on and watching the races. But I think that's a really important takeaway for them, right?
Yeah, for sure. And they watch, right? They have a whole team, and we go meet with them. Probably once a month we're in their office, and so they have a team of social and marketing. They look at the numbers and they look at the posts, and a lot of posts say, "Hey, I used to watch NASCAR 10 years ago, and I quit watching, but now I watch it again because of you, the way you've connected us through social." And it's not just her. There's a group of young kids that do it pretty good in NASCAR that are coming up, and I think you like to think there'll be a rise again in the sport, but I think there needs to be some more young drivers with strong social get up into the bigger ranks to really make it move.
Right.
And what do you take about this too? And social aside, but you're talking about those young kids. Like we've got your daughter Hailie. Then I look and we've got Sheldon Creed. We got Zane Smith, Riley Herbst. We got all these off-road kids. And dude, they're shredding.
Yeah.
What is your take? Because you're a dirt guy. I mean, and they're like invading this stock car world, and it's like kids here from the West Coast that grew up in the dirt, man. I mean, you've been to enough races. I mean, what do you take? What do you think? Because I've never been behind the wheel of a stock car.
Yeah.
What do you think? What's the reason behind that? Because these 4 kids are just shredding, Brian.
They're doing good, and they didn't grow up in it. So that's the other thing, A lot of these parents groom their kids from the quarter midgets to the bandoleros to up through the legend cars, and then they get into a late model, and that's kind of the ranks that you go through. And a lot of these off-road kids, they didn't do that, So
they're in mod carts or UTVs or dirt bikes and just whatever,
Yeah. So I think there's no secret that, like, say, Jeff Gordon, and you have Tony Stewart, guys that came from the dirt. There's no secret that dirt is the secret ingredient to be good driving a loose race car. But, I raced super late models for a couple years back when Pastrana was going to NASCAR. NASCAR called, and they wanted me to try to make a run at it. And I'd raced rallycross and a few things, so I thought I could do it. I went to the local track, and no one really knows, but I raced for a couple years in stock cars. Didn't make it because I didn't have the funding to write that crazy 7-figure check at the time. But the bottom line is it's harder than people think. You think, I'm just going in a circle. It's so much based upon how good you are at tire wear, how good you are at car setup. And if you're off a 10th, by the end of the race, you're going to be lapped at least a couple times. So it's so important about the equipment, like I said. But the car, at the end of the race, no matter what, you're going to start getting loose and the cars start sliding. That's where these off-road kids are shine. That's where the Sheldon Creed had to tone it down because he was so aggressive. He was, getting too aggressive in the stock cars. But once he figured it out, he started running up front. And then you have Zane, you have Herps, all came from the mod kart program, which I still think is the best program for kids to learn is the whole karting program. I think the best thing Lucas Oil has going is their karting program. If I wanted to say I want Haiden to learn how to race, I'd put him through the karting program, and I feel like he'd be ready to go pretty much anywhere. And so, anyway, all those kids came from that program, and they all can drive loose race cars. And that's what's the key. Like, they are going to be good when the karting guys and the pavement guys at the end of the race are all scared because their car is sliding at 150, 200 miles per hour, and these dudes are in their comfort zone. Big difference, and that's where Hailie is. She's in her comfort zone when that car is sliding. People, when she did her test drives in front of Toyota and all the higher ups, they're like, we've never seen a girl get in a car like that and drive that many consistent laps sideways and be perfect every lap. And I'm like, dude, that's off-road. That's like every lap, every turn, so.
Attention Off-Road Nation. The Unlimited Off-Road Racing Championship comes roaring through Parker, Vegas, and Barstow in 2024. It's 3 of the most prestigious and competitive off-road races in the sport. It all starts with the return of the Parker 400 in beautiful Arizona, January 10th through the 14th. Then it's the biggest, baddest, most grueling off-road race on the planet. The BF Goodrich Tires Mint 400 comes roaring back into Sin City, Las Vegas, March 6th through the 10th. And finally, the climactic conclusion of the Unlimited Off-Road Racing Championship, the California 300, returns to Barstow, October 2nd through the 6th. Visit UnlimitedOffRoadRacing.com for complete details. The 2024 Unlimited Off-Road Racing Championship is here.
Well, I know the first time I actually really got to see Hailie drive, like I'd seen her race mod karts or whatever, but a couple years ago we were all back there at Minnesota for Terracross.
Oh, yeah.
And you and Hailie came out to race, and and there's all of us there, and like you go and you burned a quick lap, and everybody's got their qualifying runs in. Yeah. Here comes Hailie, and like nobody expected anything, right? We thought she's going to be good. She goes out there, and you got guys like Luberg, who that guy is just phenomenal behind the wheel, and like these champs, and like I think maybe Ronnie Anderson was there. Here comes Hailie, never been in a Razor before. Dude, like blew everybody out of the water. Guys, girls, Sarah Price just destroyed everybody. And everybody's like, what the hell just happened? And I'm like, this is scary that she's that fast in something she'd never actually even driven before. She goes out, just destroyed everybody. And everybody's like jaws were on the floor. It was like, what just happened?
Qualifying, right?
There is a guy out in the yard from France building a track in Ryan's
we
front
have
yard.
some secrets. We have a few UTVs around here. Yeah, but no, she was just getting introduced to UTVs at the time. And for her to go up there and be the fastest qualifier and have no fear. And, no fear, I think, comes with a lot of your upbringing. It has a lot to do with not having a lot of crashes or injuries yet either. Yeah. So, and then she flipped backwards.
Yeah, she did a backflip. They got this thing is dug out.
Yeah.
I can't remember, somebody paused at the top. She did a complete backflip in the UTV, lands on the wheels, gassed it, went. And it's stuff like that. It's the moments like that, though, where it's not planned. It's not anything you can film, you can plan for, but it's how you react. And, like, the way Hailie reacted right there, like, there's a couple thousand people watching, like, boom, instant fans.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like that's authentic. You know what I mean? That's just her personality to do that. Yeah. A lot of people would have got mad, started yelling at the guy in front of her, like, Hailie, no, we're just going to mash the gas and go.
Send it. Yeah. That was a fun event for sure. No, we had a good time there.
So
sure.
I want to go back to the beginning, though, and we don't have to go the entire career arc because we don't have enough time. But give us some moments in your career, because I know one that stands out for me. I know you moved at a young age, you know what I mean, from Midwest, and wanted to make it as a Supercross rider. I know and one of the moments that stands out in my mind is there's the big iconic where you ghost rode the motorcycle and things like that. Yeah. But what are some of the moments you think that really kind of put you on the map and help define where you're at? Because you were phenomenal at riding Supercross, but it was just the transition just kind of naturally happened to FMX, right?
Yeah, I think it's, coming from the Nebraska, the dirt bike was my way out. And then I got to meet people from all around the country at the amateur nationals. I knew I had to get out of there. And I went to California, and I just turned pro at Supercross. And I got on a team, but I was always somewhere around that fifth place guy. And back then, there was about four factory riders, right? One at Yamaha, one at Cowie, one at Honda. There wasn't the top 20 have a ride. Right now, there's 5 guys on each support team, and the top 20 are on factory bikes. We didn't have that. We were out of the back of our van, fifth place, So the bottom line is, though, I trained super hard. I always had a crazy work ethic. Every day I'd run miles and train and do motos. And so when I came to that Supercross, say that night when I won, I remember I came off the starting line, and I kind of got lucky on the start. Guys got pushed out, and I just was running third. And then I just started catching the leaders because they got tired. And I was getting so nervous because, like, Kevin Windham was coming, and I remember Carmichael, Ramsey, and Volleman were all coming. And I'm, like, leading this race, and I passed Renard for the lead. I could hear the crowd going, wow, screaming. And I was like, I just remember butterflies. I'm like, dude, why am I getting so nervous right now riding? And I just remember hitting the jumps. I made a mistake, and I was like, oh, don't throw it away. And I was just going to be happy to get on the podium, dude. Like, honestly, like, because I hadn't got on the podium to that point. And so I'm leading the race, and it's coming down to the last lap, and I just see Windham coming. I'm like, dude, do not let him beat you. And then I was like, he was coming, and I just see him right behind me, and he washes out and crashes. And I'm like, dude, 2 more turns. So I go through, and I was just like, what do I do? And because I didn't know what to do over the finish line because I wasn't planning on winning the race. So I go through the whoops, and they're all rutted. I'm like, dude, do not crash. And I go to the finish line. I'm like so excited. I just let go of the bike. And I remember flying in the air, and I'm like, dude, this is going to hurt. I was way high, and I fall in between the double, and like, boom, and I get up, and I'm like so pumped, and my bike lands perfect and rolls off to the side. And they're battling over my head, second, third, fourth, or all racing. And I'm like, dude, I didn't even care. And I'm like, yeah, I don't see that crap anymore. You never see anything like that. Like, it would be, it'd be a hell to pay. And so anyway, that moment was so iconic. And I knew kind of at that point, and I went up on the podium, and I was just so hyped. I was like, I just kicked everyone's ass, and da-da-da. And the crowd was like, and still to this day, like when I go places like the grocery store or wherever around town, people are like, I was there that night. That night you won, and go start your bike. That's the one thing I hear the most out of everything I've done.
That's none of the X-Games stuff, nothing. It's like
I hear a little bit that, hey, I was there that night you did the 360 at the Coliseum. Like, that was another big one, but, like, there was a lot of people there that night at the LA Coliseum. Like, a lot of moto heads. Like, so it was such an iconic moment. And then after that, there was a factory ride open. I was on a Suzuki. I'd bought at the shop, and then Suzuki had a spot open because Ferry got hurt. And they gave it to another rider. And that was the moment in my life that I just crushed me. Because I'd worked since I was a little kid to get a factory ride. That's all I wanted. And they gave the ride to a slower rider at the time. And I knew at that moment, I was like, it's not going to happen. Like, I'm not going to get a factory ride. And that's when I kind of just got mad, even madder. And I was like, fuck this sport. And I was just so mad. And then I just went into tricks and freestyle and like, what can I do besides racing to make a living? And that's when we started doing all the tricks on dirt bikes, and Crusty Demons came out, Moto Triple X, and then it kind of snowballed, obviously, and X-Games came around in 99.
You guys basically started Dogtown of moto at that point.
Yeah, if you think about Dogtown, is the Z-Boys, whatever, that era of, like, say, the Bones Brigade, right? The Bones Brigade was badass. And still to this day, they're like, dude, that's cred, like street creds, And you think of that.
Rejecting, like, the tournament crap. We don't give a shit about that anymore, right?
Yeah, it's about filming and getting cool film parts and just having fun, having fun doing your sport or whatever it was, And so I feel like, and I tell that to the guys, I'm like, no matter what, we were the OGs of a movement. We had this movement, and they'll never be able to take that away. Right. Like, we were the guys who took a chance. I walked away from racing. I could have kept racing. Who knows? Maybe I would have got a ride one day. Maybe I wouldn't have. And so at the end of the day, I took a chance. I walked away and started a sport with some other guys, and it paid off. It was the right time, and it was a massive risk, and it worked, So... I could definitely go into that more, but at the end of the day, that was a pretty cool moment. 99 X-Games, that was one of the coolest things, showing up, moto guys that were, like, living out the back of my van to, like, there's Tony Hawk, there's, Nyquist, there's, all these dudes I watched on TV since the 95 X-Games when it started. And there's crowds, huge crowds, and then we crack up the dirt bikes, and then we start hitting. Mickey Diamond designed this gnarly course on the pier, and we start hitting these 80-foot, 100-foot dirt jumps, wah with the dirt bikes, and the crowd just comes running. They've never seen nothing like it, and like thousands of people surround this jump park. And at that point, I'm like, it's on. Like, it's freaking on. Like, from that point, it was like, boom. And then it just snowballed from there, you know?
Well, and it's funny, too, because like you said, at that point, you know, social media wasn't around, anything like that. I mean, there was, you know, internet kind of in its infancy type of thing. But, like, unless you went to frequented dirt bike shops and went and bought the Krusty's tapes or Terra Firma or any of those, like, you hadn't seen that, you know, and I think, like, that was, like, for people's first experience, you know, that was, like, their first hit, and it was, like, I remember it was, like, after that, like, it was a talk on, you know, anywhere, like, schoolyard, you know, grocery store, coffee shop, everybody's like, dude, did you watch what happened at X Games? Like, you guys overnight went from, like, nobodies to, like, superstars,
Superstar status, and it's funny because racing hated it. Supercross guys hated it. Like, I talked to Mitch Payton, you know, about it and this, that, and then he's like, those dudes hated freestyle. They thought we were like, I think they were just haters, like, in the end, because they're like, these dudes couldn't make it in racing, so they went and did freestyle motocross, and now they're all partying, screwing around. But making money, having fun, and, like, killing it, like, basically, to where they're like, we want to play. Like, after a while, you know, Supercross had to be a part of X Games. That's when I started laughing, because I'm like, you don't understand. We were, like, anti-Supercross, right? We were anti-all racing, and then eventually it came to X Games. I think it came to X Games after that first hit, right? And X Games was so much hype and so punk rock when it first started. It was just punk rock. Like, that was X Games. And I just feel like that you know, late 90s, early 2000s of the action sport movement was so much energy in it. And I feel like I don't know if it'll ever get repeated. That, you know, I think a new movement will have to start to ever get that much hype again, you know, that much energy that it had.
Well, and, like, the whole thing with, like, the Mulisha, you know, because I remember, you know, apparel sales, like, overnight. It was like, I don't think dirt bike shops, anybody could keep that stuff in stock. But, you know, that whole thing, like, that wasn't, you know, I mean, now we know you're this master marketer and things like that. But at that point, it was pretty authentic. Like, it was just you guys being you, right? There was, like, no master plan. We're going to have this click and we're going to take over. And that was just you guys being you, right?
It was. Like, at the end of the day, we had this group of guys and, you know, say one of the guys had the land, so his family had tractors in the land, so we all went there for the jump park. And then we kind of had this little cliquey group that was like Twitch, Feist. You know, Feist moved out from the East Coast. He was a racer. I talked him out of, like, racing to come hang with us. And you know, he's a roommate. I needed him to help me pay rent. and then we had, you know, had Larry, and then we had there's a small group when it first started, and we were rough. Like, it was real and authentic. And we started spray painting Mulisha on hats with stencils and T-shirts. And that's when people were like, we want it. But there was no social media to go, okay, like, we want your stuff. Where do you get it? Like, it was kind of like, okay, I can tell there's crowds of people, like, spray painting Metal Mulisha on their clothes and signs. How do we get this public to rep our product? And that's when we said, man, I guess we should start a clothing company. And that was 99, you know, 20 years ago. And you know, that was where we opened up a little shop, not a shop, but a warehouse, and started printing T-shirts, super simple, basic icon T-shirts, and started selling them and then the shops were buying, everyone started buying them. And about 2-3 years in, I'm like, dude, what do we do? This thing's at, like, millions of dollars, and I don't know how to run it. Like, it's going too fast. And that's when we went to Cameron Steele helped us, like, go down and meet some people, and we ended up meeting the guys at La Jolla, who were a big distribution company for clothing, who did O'Neill Surf and a bunch of big brands. And they said, okay, your brand's got a lot of hype, and we're willing to take it on and distribute it across the world. And this is the deal. And we ended up signing a deal with them, and dude, it blew up. Like, I was like, it's crazy how big it grew. And what was cool about that movement, we started making money, and we were able to build jump parks. We were able to pay riders. You know, we're putting food on the table for all our athletes. And I mean, it was a good run, you know, like, to think, like, to able to turn something into a business and feed your riders, like, that was pretty cool, you know. That was probably the coolest part of it. And 20 years ago, like, that was like, makes me feel old, man. 20 years ago, like, this year. And what's cool about it, we went through ups and downs. Obviously, the whole industry did. You know, we lost a lot of action sport brands. I'm not going to name them all, but we know a lot of them went away, right? So, and Mulisha still stood the test of time. La Jolla eventually ran its course with its contract. We went to a different clothing license, and the guy really, really fumbled the ball, which we took it back from him just recently and gave it to a new company to run it. Because at the end of the day, I don't have time to go print T-shirts and box them, right? So we hired the guys to do that. The new guys are doing a great job. So you're going to see a new resurgence of Mulisha this year. Like you are. It sounds funny, but it's coming back. And yeah, will it ever be the Mulisha of the 90s? Probably not. We're like, I'm, in my 40s and have kids. Like, but hey, Tony Hawk's still a badass, right?
Yeah.
Like
it's funny, though. There's this era of icons, and Josh and I were talking about that earlier today. Like you and, mentioned Pastrana, obviously Feist and Twitch are in there. But, I mean, you talk about Nyquist and Mira, and like there was like this whole – and it's not taking anything away from like the Nigel Houstons of the world now and these other guys, but like there was just this – it was like the golden era of action sports, and I don't mean that like – the guys aren't talented now, because we can talk about what they're doing on a dirt bike and guys like Jacko and things like that. But like, I don't know, that was just there was magic in those those years right there.
That decade, it was a decade of just like good characters, guys that were authentic and just all different, and it was cool because we didn't get along, right? So when we first came to X Games, they were mad, they hated us. They were like. F these moto dudes. Like, they're taking all the spotlight. And I remember we went to Gravity Games, NBC, and this is the first 99. We went into the industry party, the NBC party for the people that work at NBC. A very nice ballroom. We come up the escalator, right, and there's all the BMXers and all the dudes. We come. It wasn't even minutes, and we were fighting, dude. And it was like ripping each other's shirts off and throwing. I just remember throwing dudes, like we're going down the escalator, falling down, and I just remember that's when I kind of met. I guess that's when we, say Nyquist and Mira, and that's when I first ran into Mira because he ran by and punched me, and I was like, whoa! We started fighting, and then Feist came flying through the air with a karate kick and missed and fell on the ground, and it was so funny. We laughed about it after, but at the end of the day, I'm like, that was it was a fight for the territory,
It was punk rock,
it was
man.
punk rock, and you don't see that now, that stuff don't go down now, but. Oh, well, at the end of the day, I mean, it makes for good stories, but it was a cool era.
Well, and that leads – and I got to ask this question because I know Mira, I mean, he was a dear friend of mine. I know you guys were good friends and things like that, but you guys had a boxing match. Was that carryover from that? And I know at the end of the – I know it was at the end of the fight, dude, it was mutual respect and everything else, but did you carry some of that into the boxing match?
Oh, yeah, because he got me good that day. I was coming down the escalator, and I was chasing some dude, and he punched me from the side. I was like, dude, it was a good hit. And then but yeah, I was kind of that I didn't forget about that, but anyway, it was cool because when what's his name, Ellis, asked us, he asked, hey, would you be interested in fighting at my show? And I said, I don't know, and kind of because what he has going on there, and he's like, hey, if I could get another good X Games guy for you to box, would you do it? I said, yeah, why not? I like training. I love boxing and MMA stuff. So he says, okay, Carl. I go, it's got to be someone within 10 pounds of me. I don't want some monster. And so he said, okay, I got Mira. And I said, all right. And I thought about it, and I was like, dude, okay. But what I thought about was cool because I'm like, Mira is a gold medalist, right? He definitely has been beat up and come back. And I go, we have the same mindset. We both do not want to lose, no matter at all costs. So anyway, I said it'll be a good competition. I went into training. He went into training. He went to LA and just started training for months or whatever, right, with a boxing coach. And I went to Northern California to Stockton and trained with Mike Tyson's coach. and it was cool, though. And once I was ready, we started going to all the hole-in-the-wall boxing gyms in Stockton. This is Stockton's gnarly. And we'd just show up, go in, who's about my size, get in the ring, do rounds. Boom, boom, boom. And then that's when we went to Nick and Nate Diaz gym, and he had some fighters. We got in the ring, and we went rounds. And it was probably one of the gnarliest few months of my life of testing myself and seeing, okay, do you got what it takes? And when we showed up to fight that night, dude, we were both ripped. We were both
you guys were cut.
Yeah.
I remember, I think you guys walked in, everybody thought it was going to be another Ellis kind of joke.
Joke
you guys
fight.
Walked in, and I think it was immediately everybody's like, wow, this is for real.
It's a real deal.
This is the real deal here.
It was a real deal. And at the end of the day, I just remember getting in the ring. I was nervous, right? Because I know he was too. And I'm like, we walk out, I'm huge crowd. I'm like, there's no turning back now. You go in the ring, and we go out, and we start, bob and weaving. And I remember we hit each other, boom, boom. And I remember he hit me. And before that, I thought we were fighting with 16-ounce gloves, which are pretty big gloves. They're pretty padded. And then they came in before the fight, and he threw in some cheap, like, homemade 12-ounce gloves. And I'm like, dude, this is going to be like a fist fight because they were thin. Like, and they were, like, cheapy foam. And I'm like, dude, this is going to get gnarly. So I had him tape my hands, like, super tight. And we went in. I remember the first few punches, and I got hit. And I was like, freak, man, this is gnarly. Like, it was like a real punch, you know, and my flash in my eyes. And I'm like, and that's when I'm like, all right, you got to dig deep because this is going to be a real fight for a while. And we went back and forth. And overall, I think it was like, if you could say, probably one of the best fights. Now I watched it later. It was a good fight, you know. Yeah. And I couldn't say it. Was there a winner? I don't even think there was. I think in the end we just beat each other up pretty good. and I think it was just a cool experience. I'm glad I did it. Yeah. No, I gained a lot more respect for him after that fight. You know, I was like, you know, I think it's kind of like, that's just like growing up in, you know, as a kid in the schoolyard, you know, you have your beef with everyone, and when you eventually fight with that dude, and then after you usually high five, you become friends, right? Yeah. And then you have more respect for that guy. I don't know why it is, but that's just how men work, and that's just kind of how that went down.
Off-road race fans, the third annual California 300 off-road race comes blasting back into Barstow this fall, Thursday, October 3rd through Sunday, October 6th. Don't miss your chance to see hundreds of the country's elite desert off-road racers go door to door on a brutal 300-mile desert race course and witness the exciting conclusion of the unlimited off-road racing championship season. Visit thecalifornia300.com for more information and to purchase spectating, camping, parking, and VIP tickets. The California 300 returns!
And then you guys started racing against each other in rallycross, right? How did the whole, I know the off-road truck, how that kind of thing evolved, but how did rallycross open up? Because you spent some time there, and I still say, like, you know, you talk back at GRC and things like that, you had the gnarliest pass of all time in rallycross. It was in Vegas. Like, you went from the last row and passed everybody to second on, like, the start or something. Like, how did that door open up? Because you had a good run in rallycross.
Yeah, and I think rally was probably one of the most fun things I got to do because it was so technical. But I got into it because when you are an X-Games athlete and you love X-Games and then you've been hurt so many times, you're like, man, I can't keep doing freestyle motocross. I can't keep doing best trick. What can I do to still be a part of this family? And then when X-Games brought rally in, I'm like, perfect. This is going to be a perfect transfer. But problem is, it's very expensive. And I was lucky enough to get in with Ford. And Ford was coming into X Games at the time, and I had some momentum with my name and what I did in X Games, so they brought me into the team with Olsbergs and you know, some of the faster guys, and I was able to be on a good rally team for a long time and learned so much. What I learned in rallycross racing carried over into all forms of racing. So much data, analytics, and so much stuff of like so much of learning how a car works, and that was about racing for tenths on the track. And man, I love rally. I thought it was intense. You know, that was, I miss it. I wish America could figure out how to do a good rally race and get it done right, because it is so fun. But I don't know, America, I don't know why they just haven't clinged to it. You know?
It's still there, and it's like it's fledgling along, and I don't know if they've quite figured it out yet. But I know, like, it's funny because I got this Facebook group that follows a radio show, and it was funny because I was like, anybody got any questions for Brian Deegan? Literally the top question was, are we ever going to see him in a rally car again?
Yeah, I would. I mean, like, trust me, I've had conversations with Toyota about it because they're talking about doing a rally car, bringing a rally car out. I said, if you do, I'll be your driver, you know? And so, and then, you know, there's obviously, you know, all the manufacturers out there that have talked about it, but at the end of the day, there's just no home for it right now. And I know there's a little series, they're trying to keep things going, but if you go to Europe like I did, I went and raced in Finland, and you show up and you're like, dude, this is crazy. Like 60 dudes trying to make the final of 6, and they're all pretty fast, you know? And so you go over there, it's like how, I wouldn't say Supercross, but it's how probably American motocross is. You know, you got 20,000 fans out there screaming, freaking out, courses that have been there for decades. It's just established in Europe.
It's like Crandon, right?
It's like Crandon. Yeah. It's established. It's not going anywhere. But if anything, I probably miss the most to this day is rally. Yeah, doing. Yeah, for sure.
You like the stage stuff better out in the hills, or you like the coming in and out of the stadium type of stuff, like the X-Games stuff?
Dude, I way too scared of the stage rally. Yeah, because I did it. Like, here's X-Games. They said, well, you don't race rally, so if we're going to qualify you for X-Games rally, you have to go race a rally race. And so they put me in a stage rally race somewhere, I think some woods rally up in Pennsylvania or something. And I got in this Subaru I had to rent. And I had this co-pilot. I forget her name, but it was a female, and she was in X Games quite a few times. But
Chrissy Beavis, maybe.
Yeah. And so she was my co-pilot or spotter or whatever you call it. And we do the pre-rec or whatever and write our notes, and then we go on the race, and I'm like flying through the woods like at 100 or whatever through these huge trees on each side of the course, and I'm flying. I'm like, dude, this is gnarly. Like, if I go off course, you're pretty much almost dead. Like, you're hitting a tree at 100. I'm like, is this supposed to be like this gnarly? And I just didn't feel comfortable, because I've always raced on closed course or bigger, tracks or this, that. So I come flying through these hills, and they're blind with trees lining the road. I'm in the forest, and she calls, let's say she calls like a R5, which would be a right 5, which is almost like fifth gear kind of, but it really was like a right 1. It was like a first gear tight 180, and I come over this blind crest, like going probably 80, and there's a cliff. Tight right-hander. I'm like, dude, what? I ain't stopping. So I just flick the car going backwards into this cliff and start flipping, and she's in the car. We're boom, boom, boom. And we get rolled down this cliff and get stuck. And we're stuck on this blind turn. I'm like, dude, we're going to get hammered. And I was so scared. She gets in the car. She's all gnarly, opens the car, starts pulling these orange cones and laying them up the track because guys are coming. And I'm running. I'm like, I'm out of here. And I jump down the cliff and, like, fly down this cliff. And then, so anyway, that was my intro to stage rally.
Yeah.
And when I watch stage rally guys drive, I would say in the world, they're the best drivers in the world. I don't think there's a better driver than a stage rally driver. They just are so good with car control. I could try to name one. I don't know. Like, I think, F1, yeah, it's, they're great. F1 doesn't dodge trees. You know what I'm saying? Right. They ain't dodging trees at 100-some miles per hour. But their car control, when I saw Petter Solberg for the first time in Finland, I just stood there and watched at the side of the track. I'm like, who is that? And the way he drove a car, he was like one with the car. And I'm like, I've never seen someone drive a car like that. It was probably one of the coolest things I experienced going to Europe and watching that dude drive a car. It was, dude, that guy's sick, like, big time.
No, he's gnarly. His kid, Oliver, he's like 16 and shredding it right now in stage rally. Just clipped David Higgins and Pastrana recently. And kid's an animal at like 16. Yeah. Like, he's so young, he can't even race here in the States. Like, he doesn't have a driver's license, so the co-driver has to drive, and then he races the stages and gets out. But the kid's like, he's like prodigy type stuff. But that being said, you're still racing. I know we got Glen Helen this weekend, man, and it's like one of those, like, I know you're still going. Hailie shows up here and there. Like, Josh and I were talking, you guys don't prep the trucks here, right? You guys no. So the trucks here are just kind of backup play trucks, or what?
Yeah, we had everything here for many years. When we're winning championships and this, that, it all happened out of here. And so, but when you get to a point where you have 6 to 8 to 10 employees at your house every day, the wife gets over it, right? Let's just be honest. Like, it invades your personal space a little too much after time. And so I ended up moving the whole race operation to San Luis Obispo with Paul Michelle out of Racer Services. And it's way better. It's arrive and drive style. I show up, I race. It's, we go to test. I just show up. At the end of the day, it took a lot of probably the insight of me being around the race truck all the time out of my life, which probably was an advantage for me. But I just love racing off-road because it's kind of like racing dirt bikes, but you're in a roll cage and it's safer. And it's still a thrill to me. I love racing.
Well, you're still winning too, right? I mean,
yeah. Once in a while, I won the first race, which kind of was like, wow, okay, I guess this is going to be a good year. And then we went out, and I think Lucas with a lot of people don't understand, there's trying to be a motor change thing going on now with the 410 motors coming in. They're trying to make it more affordable and have this crate motor that's a 410 steel block. We run aluminum block, 436s. They're like 65, 70,000 a motor, and we run 2 of them and we swap them out through the season. When they blow up, it's like 40 G's, So they want to go to these crate 410s, which are about half the price, where you can run all season. It's to make the class more affordable, hopefully bring in more talent, more drivers. I agree with the move. The problem is they want to have a transition year or 2 or 3 years to basically where you can run the old motor or the new motor. The new motors, they get to start out front. So, they get this big, huge start, like lead start, which I personally am not a huge fan of it. I know I'm supposed to support it because I like the series and I want it to work, but like being in the race sucks. Like, because you're like, dude, the guy's so far gone and you have to have perfect laps with dudes pounding on you while they're just getting clean laps. And by the time you catch them, it's usually too late, And so anyway, it's kind of funky. I just hopefully by next year, everyone throws 410s in their trucks and we have a healthy Pro 2 class and we all can go racing,
Nice.
Yeah. Well, in talking about that, I know last year and then this year, you and Hailie both made the trip back to Crandon, dude. How was that? Because that's like another level of craziness back there.
Oh, yeah. It was the 50th, so I felt like we had to be there. I felt like if you raced off-road, that was like a race you had to be at. And I think everyone that had anything with a knobby tire on it went to that race this year.
Yeah, even McGrath pulled his out. He didn't run all year, right?
Yeah, and I didn't expect him. He threw a 410 in it and went, and he kicked ass. And I'm like, dude, we should have 410s in our trucks now because they have the advantage, right? They get to start out front. He did good. He drove good, and it was, that overall, the whole vibe of the whole week and the weekend was just cool, I think from the parade – my favorite part of the parade was the dude who was probably 90 years old in the old wooden truck shooting the shotgun in the crowd. I'm like, yes. You don't see that in California.
Right.
No old dude with a shotgun blowing it off around crowds of people in California. But
you'd have Homeland Security there, dude, to be locked up.
That dude would have been tased in like 2 seconds, dude. But, yeah, no, I had a blast. Crandon was awesome. It was cool for me to get to share it with my daughter. Obviously she's going to get super busy with NASCAR. But my goal is to always be able to pull her away from stock car racing and race off-road when she has time. Because I think that's her key to success is her dirt skills. And every time she goes and races off-road, she comes back to stock cars a better driver. She's more aggressive. The guys in stock cars, she doors them and dings them, and they get so upset. And I'm like, that's every lap in off-road. That's every turn. If you're within striking distance in off-road, the last turn, what do you think is going to happen?
You're
like,
take
the shot, right?
Yeah.
That's what you do, So in stock cars, they're like, do not hit me. And I'm like, dude, 2 different worlds, man. But anyway, I think it's good for Hailie. And she's an off-roader at the end of the day. She likes the dirt. She likes to be in the dirt.
So what's next for the Deegans? Obviously, we got Hailie, as we kind of wrap up here. We got Hailie shredding it in stock cars. You got the boys both coming up doing their thing. You're still racing off-road. I know you said if the right opportunity popped up, you might like to try a trophy truck at some point. Like, what's next for the Deegan family, man?
Yeah, I know. I talked to Hailie before she gets busy. It'd be cool to go race Baja with Hailie. Me and her in a truck and go do maybe the 500 or something that would be a cool story and get to experience that with a good team. And we talked to Herbst a little bit about it. Maybe Monster could get involved and help with that. But I think it'd be a cool story with me and Hailie racing. But our focus for me, I'm going to be in short course. I have a good deal with Mickey Thompson Tire. And, with my Deegan 38 tires, it's been a good business for me. So off-road is kind of the base of that. So I'm going to stay in off-road and race for, I don't know how much longer, but keep racing. And then Hailie is going to do her go to ARCA next year, some K&N racing, and probably touch the truck series. So that's a big step. And then Hayden's doing motocross, supercross, along with Hudson. Hudson's doing football, just kind of doing normal sports stuff. And but Haiden is on his way to, supercross, who knows how far it's going to go, but he's really, really good on a dirt bike. So I have to make enough time for him. That's what's been hard with the whole racing world with Hailie's transition. And my toughest thing I have to do is make time for everyone in the family, because, a wife and marriage takes time. You got to make time for that. And then you have my daughter whose NASCAR thing's going to be 30-some races next year, and so you got to make time for that. And then Hayden's motocross, he's got 4 to 5 nationals we have to go to a year. And then Hudson's waiting on the fence, as a third child. And, and it's important he has to get included too. And then, so man, and then I have to race trucks on top of it, and can we still win, right? Because if I ain't winning, there's no reason for me to be there because ain't no one going to want to pay for it. So that's how racing works, unfortunately. But so that's kind of my thing. And like I said, we're kind of relaunching Mulisha. In the business world, I have, like all my Jeep products, and I'm coming out with F-150 products, and coming out with pretty much all the manufactured Toyota products. When I say products, bumpers, side steps, accessories you'd put on your car, and they're sold through Extreme Terrain online. It's a Deegan 38 product, and so that's my off-road thing that I'm touching, and still want to stay involved with off-road through that, and a lot of different things that I do. So. It's all good.
Podcast, YouTube channel, rolling, right?
Yeah. So let's be honest, right? Social media is where it's at right now. I don't see it going anywhere anytime soon. And it's a big business, right? So now people have waited long enough. Like when you post on Instagram every day, yeah, it's cool, we're all fighting for numbers and we all have our goals we want to reach, but really that's for free, kind of, right? So then you kind of get to the point where enough complaining happened. YouTube says, okay, well, we're going to pay you for content. Oh, then Facebook started paying for content. And then now, Instagram's coming. They're going to have to soon. So in the end, it's a great business, right? If you focus on it, I know because I was, yell at my kids sometimes about get off the phone or, this, that. But, dude, that's how you make a living now.
So you're that dad. Get off the phone. Pay attention. Come to dinner.
Oh, I am.
No phones at dinner.
Yeah. Well, when my daughter's crashing cars, yes. I'm like, dude, off the phone. But, no, anyway, it's a big business right now. We're heavily invested in social media. And it's fun, like if I could, my main goal was if I could figure out how to do what I love and make a living at it, that was goal number one. Accomplish that with the sports I did. And then now it's like, how do I stay around my family as much as possible and make a living, so now that's social media. So I mean, we have so much content. I can't film it all. I can't put it all out, between all the kids every day. So, thankful for that, thankful for all the networks. And I think the podcast is going to be the big one. I think that's the one we're going to get in depth into stories and get to talk to people and open up a lot of cool relationships.
Well, that's something that you touched on earlier that I think is really cool is there's the encyclopedia of stories that you have from year after year after year and how deep you can go and the lessons you learn from it. Because at the end of the day, we're here to entertain people, but if you can touch one kid and spark a family discussion or help a young woman make a jump into the pros and radically affect their life, that's awesome. Right?
Oh yeah,
you're giving back then.
For sure. I agree. I mean, Hailie, like you're saying, I've seen so many little girls now at the racetrack. Just for example, you look at the mod kart class or the karting class. I mean, there's so many little girls in there now, and hopefully Hailie had a part of that. It's kind of cool. To look back, it's pretty rad. I see a surgence of young female racers coming. And I think it's cool. I think it can happen. Hopefully, Hailie leads the way and becomes the first NASCAR champion, the first NASCAR winner in the major series. It's going to be hard. It won't be easy. We know. It's going to take a ton of work, and I'm excited for that day.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to watch the career arc, man, and fun catching up, Brian. I know we'll see you out there at Glen Helen, but I appreciate the time, and looking forward to episode number 1 of yours with TP, man. That's going to be exciting.
Yeah, thanks for having me for sure.